Hey soccer fans, this is Nick reminding you to check out Sports Spider. If you're tired of searching multiple websites for sports news, SportsSpider.com has you covered. They collect the latest articles, videos, and podcasts from around the web and organize them by your favorite teams. If you want to stay as updated as possible on the Chicago Fire or any other team, hit the link in the description to check out SportsSpider.com. Hey soccer fans, this is Nick and welcome back to the Feed the Fire podcast. This is the There's No Place Like Home show because I am back after 2 weeks away from vacation. I was back in my motherland, back in Greece. Loved every minute about it, and I'll share a little of my trip with you all before we get right back into the reason we're all here, talking Chicago Fire and Major League Soccer. First, I want to thank everyone for the good wishes you've all wished to me while I was away. I'll do my best to respond to your emails and messages this week. And first of all, no, I did not intentionally plan my vacation around the Leagues Cup break. That was just good timing on the part of my wife, I suppose. We do have lots to talk about regarding the Fire, but regarding my Greek vacation, it was absolutely amazing. And if you have not been to Greece, you need to start planning your trip there. And if you have been to Greece, start planning your trip back. It is a beautiful country. Everywhere you look, it looks like it's a scene from a travel magazine. My family and I, we spent 3 full days in a town called Nafplio on the Aegean coast. There were 2 beautiful beaches that were nearby town. We went there each morning and then went back to the Airbnb for the afternoon. Quick little nap, refresher, and then out for dinner and ice cream. And that was kind of one of the themes of the trip, ice cream every night. And man, there must be something in the gelato, I should say. That nice, rich American ice cream. Couldn't find it too readily available overseas there, but there must be something in the gelato because my kids definitely had a nice sugar rush, and they were just firing on all cylinders after they got their hands on some of that. But after Nafplio, which again a gorgeous little town, tons of great places to eat, we spent a week on an island called Kefalonia on the western coast of Greece. We stayed in the capital city of the island, Argostoli. And no 2 days were alike on the island. It was amazing. There was so much to do. We visited several beaches, went to several different towns, took a boat through Messalini Cave, which is a cave they have found traces of man dating back to like the Stone Age. It's a beautiful, like 300-meter long cave that you can, full of water, that you can take a little boat around. We got to see a rare cave eel that was swimming around our boat. Just a beautiful sight. We also got to, more modern activity. One of the top Greek singers right now, Konstantino Argyro, was visiting that town, and we just, sure, let's get tickets, let's go. So the kids had a blast seeing one of their favorite Greek singers perform. We visited the monastery of St. Gerasimos to see his relics and got to go into the cave where this saint of the Greek Orthodox Church lived. We went to a place called the Saris Winery to try a white wine made from grapes that only grow on the island, and it was a delicious dry white wine. And if you're a wine connoisseur, look up the Robalo grape grown in Kefalonia, Greece. Absolutely amazing. And then of course the shopping, the desserts, the restaurants, the food, trying something new every night. Absolutely loved it. And then our last couple days we spent in Athens, where our balcony was directly across from the Acropolis, and we could look out on the Parthenon every morning while we sipped our coffee, and every evening while we unwound from the day. And again, it was just more food and shopping. Went to an island nearby called Aegina, visiting the monastery of St. Nectarios, and again taking in some of the seaside towns and restaurants that were on the island. The one spectacular thing about visiting the monastery of St. Nectarios and visiting the tomb of the saint is if you put your ear to it and you listen closely, you can actually hear a soft knocking sound, or possibly the heartbeat of the saint still coming from the tomb. And my family was blessed enough to actually hear knocking coming from inside his tomb, and just as a reminder for us and for our faith of that it is still alive and active, and the saint is still working on our behalf. So that was a beautiful experience we got to share, and I appreciate you all kind of indulging me for a minute as I get to share some of these great memories with you. I'll try over the next few days to put some pictures online, so make sure you're following along. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at Glasshouse Soccer. Or if you want to talk further about it, or any travel recommendations, you can email me, glasshousesoccer@gmail.com. But speaking of soccer, there's really no soccer to this trip. Oddly enough, the most soccer was seeing the Ariel concert in an old soccer stadium. We drove past the stadium where Olympiacos plays in the town of Piraeus, the port city there just south of Athens. And then when we were at the airport flying home, the international airport in Athens, we got to see the AEK, the black and gold team from Greece, walking through the airport. And I'm pretty sure that I saw Rodolfo Pizarro, who is surprisingly still playing, having a decent career, I guess, in his first season, only a couple games in with the Greek Super League now. So yeah, an odd little way to tie it all back to Major League Soccer as we were ending our trip there, and that's where we'll go with it. We're back into Major League Soccer. The League's Cup break is just about over. There's still, of course, the semifinal games are going on tonight, Wednesday the 21st. But for our purposes, Chicago Fire fans, there is a lot of MLS news, and probably nothing bigger than Xerdan Shaqiri and the Chicago Fire parting ways. We'll also talk a little bit about Georg Heitz stepping down and the signing of Ariel Lassiter, and I think we'll be able to squeeze a quick preview of the Fire's next game against New York City in as well. So let's get into all the Chicago Fire talk, starting with Xerdan Shaqiri parting ways and signing with FC Basel of the Swiss Super League. So just like it's welcome home for me, welcome home for him as well. And here's the announcement from the Chicago Fire website. Chicago Fire FC have mutually parted ways with midfielder Xerdan Shaqiri, the club announced Wednesday. This is Wednesday, August 14th. The Swiss international joined the Fire in February 2022 from League One side Lyon, arriving for reportedly $7.5 million, formerly a club record fee. The 32-year-old was a designated player. Shaqiri exits Chicago with 14 goals and 18 assists in 69 regular season matches. Quote, after discussions with Xerdan, we have mutually agreed that parting ways is in the best interest of all parties. We thank him for his contributions to the club and wish him success in the next chapter of his career, end quote, Sporting Director Georg Heitz said in a release. During the 2022 season, Shaqiri had a team-leading 18 goal contributions. And I do have to remind you all that of those goal contributions, 7 were from the penalty spot throughout his entire career. So the numbers are a little bit inflated because he was the main PK taker, so just keep that in mind. The article continues, however, the attacker's box score numbers slipped over the past 2 years. That's being generous. Shaqiri last appeared for Chicago on May 18th. This summer, he became the first active MLS player to score at the UEFA European Championship. I mean, that's like just good bar trivia at this point. It really means nothing for the Chicago Fire. Shaqiri is quoted as saying, I believe this is the right time for me to explore new opportunities in my career. I want to thank the club and the fans for their support during my time in Chicago. I wish the Fire nothing but success moving forward. End quote. So yeah, very common, typical athlete and club quotes coming from Shaqiri and Georg Heitz. Anything else there? Oh yeah, the article ends, currently Chicago are 14th in the Eastern Conference and at risk of missing the playoffs. They last made the postseason in 2017. And then there's a link to Shaqiri's best goals in MLS. And just for kicks, that video is 5 minutes long, so they were able to make 5 minutes worth of highlights from Xerdan Shaqiri. So let's reflect back a little bit on Shaqiri now that he is officially no longer part of the Chicago Fire and has joined FC Basel in Switzerland. Again, 7 of his goals were from the penalty spot, so it's not like he was lighting up the scoreboard, or, you know, doing all these great things, and just the rest of the team couldn't keep up with him. Like, he did not fit this team. And just as a quick sidebar, this is not a buyout. The Fire used that on Kasper Shabilko at the beginning of the year. So because they mutually parted ways and did not buy him out, they cannot sign another designated player. And if you recall, MLS recently changed their roster rules regarding designated players, and teams can select the designated player model, where you get 3 DP slots and 3 U22 initiative player slots, or you can select the U22 initiative model, where you get 2 DPs, 4 U22 players, and up to $2 million in additional general allocation money, or GAM. So the Fire have elected to go with the U22 initiative model, which makes sense because they can't sign that third DP with Shaqiri's departure, or can't sign a new DP with Shaqiri's departure, and are going into a rebuilding year. So get that GAM, get that roster flexibility. But looking back again on Shaqiri from the club level, to me, this signing of Shaqiri was a signal that Joe Mansueto, the owner of the club, would spend money. But it was also a sign that the club was going to have to overpay stars and big-name players to come to the team. That was a club record signing. He was the highest-paid player in the league when he signed. He quickly became the second highest-paid player because that was the year Chicharito also signed with the LA Galaxy. And even now, with Messi coming in and all these other big-name players over the last couple years, Shaqiri was still, I think, the third or fourth highest-paid player in the league, making around $8 million this year. So that just shows you that Chicago, as a club, is not a destination for players, and that they're going to have to overpay to get names, to get players here. And honestly, I believe that $12 million that they paid for Hugo Kuipers, though he seems to be working towards being worth it, whereas Shaqiri started off almost there and then tailed off. Kuipers is approaching his paycheck, I guess, from a performance standpoint. $12 million does seem like you overpaid a little bit for a striker to come in. So it does show that they're willing to spend, but it does show that they're going to have to overspend, at least in the time being. But also the Shaqiri signing showed a lack of clear vision for the first team from the front office. Shaqiri signed prior to the 2022 season. That was in February of 2022. November of 2021 was when they signed coach Ezra Hendrickson. So that same postseason. Season ended, hired Ezra. 3 months later, you signed Shaqiri. Problem was, Ezra Hendrickson's offense was predicated on getting your wingbacks pushing forward, playing up the wings, sending in crosses, and Shaqiri was being played centrally as the almost in a number 10 role, as the main distributor, the guy you wanted to play through. And even though he played on the wing a lot with Switzerland, he was never used that way. And if he was going to play on the wing, it's not like he would have played very well within this wing-back driven offense. So you hire a coach and you sign a player who don't fit each other's model, and on top of it, your emerging star, your young star Brian Gutierrez, is here to also play centrally and be a distributor and be a guy you can play through. And neither Ezra Hendrickson or Frank Klopas, or anyone else in the club for that matter, could figure out how to get Gutierrez and Shaqiri on the pitch playing together well, helping the team generate offense. So it just showed that they went out and found a big signing, and then went out and found, probably in their mind, the best coach available, but they didn't do that in concert with each other. Now, from the player level, it looked like a really good signing given Shaqiri's pedigree for club and country, though the money again was a bit much. However, the player himself treated his first season in MLS as a way to stay fit for Switzerland's World Cup. And even though that's what Gareth Bale did, and everyone seemed okay with Gareth Bale just, being a sub for LAFC and staying fit for Wales' World Cup, remember, he helped LAFC win a trophy. He was the piece that put them over the top, whereas the Fire were trying to have Shaqiri be the centerpiece of the team and build around him, and he's just not that guy. He never gelled with his teammates and his coaches, and I think I'm being polite in saying it that way. Never became that star or the leader the club needed. I don't think he even made an all-star team, to be honest. So looking back, Shaqiri's signing and his tenure in Chicago will probably go down as one of the biggest busts in MLS history, especially with that paycheck and lack of production. But sometimes you need to flame out so badly that the only way to fix it is wholesale change, and that's kind of what the Chicago Fire are going through now. So that brings us to the next topic: Sporting Director Georg Heitz stepping down from his position at the end of the season. Here is the release from the club on that, and this is going back to Monday, August 12th, so right before the Shaqiri announcement was made by the club as well. Chicago Fire FC Sporting Director Georg Heitz. By the way, I've heard people call him Georg and call him George. I'm not 100% sure which one it really is, if it even matters. But Chicago Fire FC Sporting Director Georg Heitz announced today that he will depart the club following the conclusion of the Fire's 2024 MLS season for personal reasons. Quote, "It is with a heavy heart that I have decided to return to Switzerland after the 2024 season due to personal reasons," said Heitz. "I'd like to express my deepest gratitude to Joe Mansueto and his family for their unwavering trust and loyalty. Their commitment to the club is exceptional, and working alongside them has been an honor. I also want to thank the players, coaches, staff, fans, and everyone associated with the Chicago Fire for the hard work and support. Although the results have fallen short of our expectations," that's the understatement of the century, "I am proud of our progress in other important areas and the working culture we've established, which will serve the organization well moving forward. With the move into a new performance center and added roster flexibility in the offseason, I'm confident that the future is bright for this club. We also remain fully committed to qualifying for the 2024 MLS Cup playoffs and will give everything until the very last moment to achieve that goal." So, great quote there from Georg Heitz. And now we hear from Joe Mansueto, who says, quote, "George recently informed me of his decision to step away from the Fire after the season, and while I respect his choice to return to Switzerland, his presence and leadership will be greatly missed," said Chicago Fire FC owner and chairman Joe Mansueto. "I would like to sincerely thank George for his dedicated efforts to expand our football operations and build a structure that will set the club up for success." And then it kind of goes over some of his accomplishments here, serving as sporting director since December 20th, 2019. Talking about the global scouting operation they implemented, adding Chicago Fire FC 2, multi-club network he built by acquiring FC Lugano, bigger emphasis on the academy, identifying talent, signing 10 homegrowns, transferring 3 players to top 5 leagues, including John Duran and Gaga Slonina, which are significant MLS transfers. And the last bit of information here, moving forward, Heitz will remain in his position as a member of the board of directors for FC Lugano and will play a key role in the relationship between the two clubs. And this is kind of where the speculation from a lot of people actually is coming to fruition, and you're seeing that this is what he's best suited for. More of the business side of things, more of club organization and development, rather than actual sporting decisions, first team roster type decisions. And while he did expand that global scouting network, who are the most impactful players that they signed? Haile Selassie, Alana Ergoni, guys from the sister club Lugano. So it's not like they had to look that hard with their scouting network, though. And as well, who are the biggest outgoing transfers? Gaga Slonina, homegrown. You know, who are the most impactful players right now? Gutierrez, Chris Brady, homegrowns. Kellen Acosta, Andrew Gutman, interleague signings. Right, so it's not like the scouting network really paid off. The John Duran signing might be the outlier there. That might be the exception to the rule, that they found such a great talent. But the problem is, you found such a great talent, you didn't play him for half a season. And maybe that falls on the coaching. Maybe that falls on a lack of unified vision from the front office and the coaching staff. But regardless, this is welcome news. But again, there's 2 parts to this whole Georg Heitz saga. You know, like they listed in the article, internally, you've seen the club reorganize itself, become a better place to work, get sponsorships, build a training facility with a big corporate sponsor, transfer players to and from Lugano, expand the scouting network, grow the academy, youth programs, community outreach. Now, I don't know how much of this is on Heitz versus Pelzer. I can't say, but the Fire have taken big steps forward as an organization as a whole. You can't neglect the sales of Slonina and Duran and all those other accomplishments that the club has completed. But the bottom line was they are not a winning club. They're not good results on the pitch. The coaching hires were all poor. The player signings for the most part were poor. And as everyone points out, the DP signings, your top end signings, where you put your money, where the players the team relies on for results, those were not there at all. Gaston Jimenez, multiple DP contracts. Xerdan Shaqiri, bust of a DP. Jairo Torres, just another absolute bust of a DP. You know, you're relying on guys like Fabian Herbers to carry your team, and that is not a method of success in Major League Soccer. And it just didn't seem like he fully understood how to build an MLS roster and work within MLS roster rules, and also no clear unified vision for style of play, identity from the first team down through the academy. So all of that is on Heitz, and that's why he had to go. Now, he says he stepped down for personal reasons, and you know, who am I to say that's not the case? But there certainly were a lot of professional reasons of why it was the right time for him to leave. He will return to Switzerland, continue as a member of the board of directors for Lugano, and still probably have a great relationship with Joe Mansueto, and that's great. So, where do the Chicago Fire go from here? The answer, Greg Berhalter. Nope, just kidding. That is just complete conjecture and rumor, but the rumor is that they're looking at Greg Berhalter to fill in as a dual coach and sporting director GM type of role. Again, all rumor, no official reports, but that's what some people are saying is out there. I don't like that approach. For whatever it's worth, I do not like that approach in today's MLS. Maybe you could get away with that years ago when you had smaller budgets, smaller rosters, less teams, and you were still kind of building the league up. But now when you have clubs that are so varied in all their interests, from first team, second team, academy, youth program, all the accomplishments that we listed off that Heitz was a part of, you can't have someone who can also do all of that and be the head coach of the team. Additionally, I think your coach needs to really bond with the players, work with them one-on-one, have faith in them, and, you know, coach them through, or maybe even play them through some tough spots during the season, whereas a GM or a sporting director has to be very objective, use their reasoning, use their heads, not their hearts, to make the decision. So that's why I really don't like the dual role of that. And the biggest example of that dual director, GM, sporting king, or as some people say, the soccer czar, you know, and coach is Peter Vermes. And we've seen Kansas City fall short of expectations year after year after year. And a lot of people in Kansas City are questioning the fact that Vermes has such authority and such broad powers in that club, not being able to focus on one particular area. What I think the Fire need to do, and if I was Joe Mansueto, find a GM who has success in Major League Soccer, who understands the ins and outs of their roster rules, how to build a roster, how to sustain success. You can't overload your contracts. You can't put most of your money and most of your signings into 3 or 4 players. You've got to spread it out. I've used LAFC as an example. They continuously are bringing in top-end talent, big-name stars, and filling out the rest of the roster with solid MLS, domestic, and a little international talent. They're not paying their designated players more than like $3 million or so, because they can spread that money around and kind of raise the floor of the rest of the team. So something like that, someone who's proven themselves to do it. People throw out Garth Lagerwey because he's from the Chicago area, but he just started with Atlanta. He is getting into that rebuild project, and he's not going to walk away from that unless within the first year they told him, hey, what you wanted to do, we've changed our mind. I really doubt that that's the case. So I don't think Lagerwey is coming. But essentially, the Fire to borrow from another Chicago team. The Fire need to find their Theo Epstein, the Cubs, the person the Cubs got from the Boston Red Sox to turn around their franchise and help them win a World Series after over 100 years. And it certainly feels like it's been 100 years since the Fire have been in trophy contention, that's for sure. The other thing Joe Mansueto needs to kind of take in mind is, are you looking for a new coach and a new sporting director or GM who can help you win trophies next season immediately? Or are you looking for someone to just kind of right the ship, to get you from worst in MLS to like mediocre and just kind of making the playoffs, sitting in that 7 and 9 spot every year, maybe doing some good bits of business with transfers in and out? I hope you're looking for the former, because in this league, you can go from worst to first in the course of a single offseason. And you're losing the fan base. There are so many, yes, there are so many new season ticket memberships being sold, but yes, you have lost so many season ticket memberships as well. And if you want to sustain and keep the people, the new fans that you've got, you got to go for it. And the money's there. Joe's willing to spend. He loves the club. So go for the right hire, but go for the ambitious hire with the GM and with a new coach. And I would say you got to get your GM in first. That way their vision for the club as a whole is in place, and they can bring the coach in who can do that, and then they can start signing the players they want. You sign a coach first, you're going to be back where you were with Ezra Hendrickson and maybe even Rafa Wicki, if you want to go back to that, and then you're going to have continued problems. So that's what I would do. That's what I would be looking for Joe Mansueto to do as well. Also, I want to remind everyone now, let's take our little halftime water break here, that the Feed the Fire podcast is sponsored by Skira Icelandic Spring Water. Skira is Icelandic for clear, and Iceland has some of the most pure mineral water, or just water, that you can get. Their tap water is better than any bottled water you get here in the United States. So if you're getting bottled water straight from a government protected preserve in Iceland, you know that it's going to be one of the best. So get out to your local 7-Eleven, buy yourself a bottle or 2 or 3 of Skira Icelandic Spring Water. They have been a sponsor of the show from episode 1, even before that. So big thanks to them. All right, let's finish up our Chicago Fire conversation here, talking about what they did in the transfer window. Not much, but they did acquire MLS veteran and kind of MLS journeyman Ariel Lassiter. So according to an August 14th release, CF Montreal is going to be receiving $75,000 in 2024 general allocation money, and in return, the Chicago Fire will receive Ariel Lassiter. Montreal will also receive $75,000 in 2025 GAM if certain player performance conditions are met, and Lassiter will be under contract with the Fire through the remainder of the 2024 season. So here is what Georg Heitz said. Take it with a grain of salt, since he's kind of a lame duck at this point. But he said, going into the final stretch of the regular season, we wanted to add a versatile player with MLS experience to strengthen our playoff push. Ariel will bring more competition and flexibility to the team as he can play multiple positions. We look forward to welcoming him to the club in the coming days. Lassiter, 29 years old, joins the Fire after spending the past 2 seasons with Montreal, where he made 56 appearances and 5 goals and 10 assists across all competitions. He's got 143 MLS appearances since featuring for the Galaxy in 2015. He then joined Houston in 2020, Inter Miami in 2022, and has been with Montreal since the beginning of the 2023 season. He also spent some time in 2019 and 2020 with Alajuelense of the Costa Rican First Division. You guys will remember Alajuelense from Champions League, CONCACAF Champions League, one of the best teams in Costa Rica for the last couple decades. He's also earned 23 caps with the Costa Rican national team, scoring in the 2021 CONCACAF Gold Cup. He is also, here's some more little trivia for you, also the son of former MLS striker Roy Lassiter. So there is your professional MLS connection, their family history, so to say. So Ariel Lassiter joins the Chicago Fire. If you want to learn a little bit more about Lassiter, obviously go ahead and look him up, but go look up a piece by Joe Chatz on OnTap Sportsnet. Joe interviews Ariel Lassiter at his first training with the Chicago Fire. There's some really good quotes in the article, some humorous ones as well, including where Lassiter admits he had no idea this trade was going to happen. He was just as surprised as everybody else. He says he was getting ready for a little staycation with his girlfriend when he found out the news. So make sure you go check out Joe Chatz's article on OnTap Sportsnet for more insight into what was going on with Ariel Lassiter right before the trade, and what he's looking forward to doing with Chicago. Now, personally, I like the signing. The money is negligible, especially with the additional allocation money the Fire are going to get by selecting the U22 roster designation. The money's negligible, so why not take a flyer on a vet and offensive presence, someone who still has a little bit to prove in the league. And if they want to, they can move on from him next season, and Lassiter should have no problem finding his way onto another team. Now, I think Lassiter, they're bringing him in to try to be what they hoped Chris Mueller could be, a presence out on that left wing. Lassiter is left-footed, I believe. That presence out on that left wing who can really work with whoever is pushing forward on the left side, who can provide service into the strikers, into the box, and then who's going to score the occasional goals. Lassiter's career stats, again, he started in 2015 with the Galaxy, but in his first 4 seasons had very, very limited appearances. He had 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe like 500 minutes in 4 seasons with the Galaxy, so hardly anything there. Really started to get some time with the Dynamo, had his best season in 2022 with Inter Miami, 4 goals, 5 assists, 17 starts, 30 appearances. So that was his best season, was 2022. And the Dynamo, they went through a coaching change, they went through an identity change. Inter Miami, they were just kind of treading water until they could get the Messi deal across the line. Then they had to revamp the roster to get compliant. So it's funny to see how Lassiter has never really found a fit with a club. A lot of the times just due to club circumstances, not due to his play or getting pushed to the side by other players on the club. And with Montreal this year, he started 20 games. This season's going to be the most minutes he's played, and has produced 10 goal contributions as well. Has a really good passing percentage, 85% passing percentage. So he is having a very, very good season. This is arguably his best season from a score sheet perspective, as well as just the general play perspective. So he could slot right in to this Fire team and really help them achieve their offensive goals. Let's see, what else did I want to say about Lassiter? On a personal note, I've always liked him as a player. I remember watching him and talking about him on our prior podcast, The Sons of a Pitch, with my good friend Mike. We were talking about Ariel Lassiter, about this is a guy who's really coming in, and obviously with the family pedigree, Roy Lassiter's son, the guy knows the sport as a player and as a professional, right? This is nothing new to him to be moving around and to stay focused and to always put his best foot forward. So I've always wanted to see him succeed. He's a guy that I looked at I looked at Derek Etienne Jr. The guy isn't going to stand out and be flashy and probably never make an all-star team. But you know what? He's going to be a darn good player for you when given the opportunity and when given some good, consistent play and some consistent coaching. Now let's hope he can figure out what Klopas is trying to do. But at the end of the day, work with your wing back on that side, link up with Gutierrez and Kuipers, and you're going to have success regardless of what Klopas tells you to do. To kind of wrap up the Lassiter signing, I wanted to review what MLS's Matt Doyle had to say about the Chicago Fire summer transfer window. He went through and graded every club, A to F scale here, and he ended up giving the Chicago Fire an A+ in their summer transfer window moves. The significant moves being parting ways with Shaqiri and just trading a handful of cash for Ariel Lassiter. Here's what Matt Doyle had to say. Fire fans got the news they were hoping for when CSO chief sporting officer, I guess. Georg Heitz announced earlier this week that he's stepping down at the end of the year, and further good news was piled on top of that when the club parted ways with Shaqiri, and then didn't immediately make another ill-advised signing. So yeah, clearly he's grading the Fire on what they didn't do and not repeating the same mistakes from the last several years. Doyle continues, Chicago's cap situation is still not great, but if they can manage a parting of the ways with Gaston Jimenez this winter, they'd find themselves with 2 open DP slots, a great academy, a number of good young players on long-term contracts, a number of guys in their prime on fair deals, Kuipers, Acosta, Gutman, Tehran, Haile Selassie, and an owner who's always been willing to spend. This is a good job, provided whoever replaces Heitz gets to call the shots. So that is Doyle's assessment of the Chicago Fire. I agree with it in every aspect. The best thing the Fire could do is kind of put themselves in the position for next season to have success from a front office and a roster perspective. By the way, speaking of those contracts, if you go follow Alex Calabrese of Men in Red 97 Media, and who's also contributing articles to MLSsoccer.com, he put out a nice little graphic showing you all the players who are under contract and when and what the roster looks like. So go check that out, and that gives you a more visual depiction of things right now. But yeah, the Fire aren't tied up to any 1 or 2 players anymore. They have a lot of flexibility, long-term, short-term, all those sort of homegrown, international, domestic, all that sort of thing. So in a good position moving forward. And speaking of moving forward, at least in the short term, the Fire have a game this weekend. Saturday, August 24th, the Fire travel to New York to take on NYCFC. In the prior match of these two teams, back on July 13th here in Chicago, they played to a 0-0 draw, a very uneventful and boring game. I was at that game, really nothing memorable from the match to talk about here. New York City, though, is looking to maintain their playoff position. They are currently 5th in the East, and maybe looking to break into the top 4 in the East and try and grab some home field advantage throughout part of the playoffs. As a result, this is going to be a tough match for the Fire. Now, New York City, again, 5th place, 38 points, 11 wins, 9 losses, 5 draws, 36 goals for, 30 goals against. So, you know, not a huge goal differential there. It's at +6. But looking at their splits here, they are 8 wins, 3 losses, and a draw at home. 3 wins, 6 losses, 4 draws away. So a very, very good home record compared to a lot of the other teams in the league, and compared to their matches away. So even more difficult for the Fire here. The Fire, though, they've been on break about 2 weeks as a result of getting knocked out of the League's Cup in the group stage. And while NYC hasn't had as long a break as the Chicago Fire, they have been off for about a week. Their last game was August 17th when they lost to the Columbus Crew in League's Cup. So, again, about a week. They're going to be rested. They're going to be ready for this game. I hope the Chicago Fire can take advantage of their long break, getting their players healthy, getting their choice 11 back ready for this matchup. And a lot of people complain about NYC's small field there in Yankee Stadium and how that is a huge home field advantage for NYC. And it has been. Obviously, they're a much better home team than away team. The record supports that. But I think the Fire are one team that could also take advantage of that small pitch when you have a keeper like Chris Brady who can start a counterattack and play a ball to Kuipers directly. Or when you have a defensive midfielder like Kellen Acosta, or depending where Mauricio Pineda plays, or you have a player like Gutierrez who is starting to really drive the ball forward with it at his feet, or those guys who can pass directly to Kuipers. So the Chicago Fire could be a team that could take advantage of a small field as well to play more direct to their DP striker, and I think Kuipers is going to bag one in this match as a result of it. And I think there's going to be goals in this game as a result of all the time off and the players returning and the playoff implications. The Fire are treating every game as if it's a playoff game for them, a must-win. As far as a prediction, I can only say that it'll be a 2-2 draw. I think there's going to be at least 4 goals in this match. And so I'm just going to split the difference with it because I can't say one way or other. You know, you're coming off of both of these teams are coming off of a break, and they're all getting healthy as well. So that is what I am going to say. Not going to get into too much of a tactical analysis. We know the big name players for NYC. We know how they like to play. Very possession oriented game, taking advantage of their midfield, of their striker play. And I think it'll be a good matchup either way. I'm excited to watch it. I'm excited to get back into some soccer, some Major League Soccer as well, especially with everything going on internationally. Premier League kicks off. The Greek Super League kicked off. All the European leagues have kicked off as well. So just another great weekend to get back into things from a soccer perspective. So in closing, I've got to say it's great to be back home, and as much as I love Greece, there's no place in the world that's like it. There's also no place like home. So great to be back talking the Chicago Fire and Major League Soccer with you all. I'll try to get back onto a regular recording schedule next week, or as we get into September. You know, get back in the swing of things with the school year. The kids are off to school next week. The big news around our house was the teacher assignment, so that was keeping everyone excited and talking today. But I also, again, I want to thank everyone out there for liking, subscribing, following, rating, reviewing, messages, emails. But most of all, thank you all for listening, and let's go Fire.